So, welcome everyone to this lovely event. I am really delighted that you're all here sharing this moment with me. So this is really about my new book, which is Free to Perform, which just came on sale today. And but I really just wanted, I was so lucky that I have these amazing people who have joined me to talk about performance in general. Some people who know about brain spotting, so I'm sure that Boo and Craig will talk a little bit about brain spotting too within this. And just to talk about what gets in the way of our performance, why do we sometimes get stuck, and also what it's like when we really are in our creative flow. So I feel so delighted to be joined by Craig Korth, Sergio Pallotelli, Dan Levitin, Boo Walker. Vic Wooten will be along here in a little while to join us as well, to really share. I mean, these are, I'm surrounded today by all of you, but particularly this group, by extraordinarily talented, creative people, and just to have the opportunity to hear your wisdom is an absolute gift. So I would like to hand first over to Boo Walker. Boo is for me an astonishingly creative novelist. Love Boo's books, and would just love to hear from you, Boo.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here, and I can't believe I'm here with such amazing humans. I was trying to think of how to start, and forgive me, everything's going to be kind of related to me as a novelist and the novel arc. And so I came upon Ruth. I came upon you 3.5 years ago now, and we've been working pretty regularly since. And I think I should back up to where things all began and what led me to finding you. And I think, in the novel arc, it would be from point A to point B in my life. And before I forget to say it, if I can do what I have done with Ruth, anybody can. And, it's so easy to think, I see people like having awakenings and climbing out on the other side. And that's just, I don't think I have that ability. It's not in my cards. It really is. And I'm proof of that in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm still a work in progress, but for where I was 4 years ago to now is just such a huge change, from just not only like the angst and the desperate need to prove myself, but just the way I am around my family and friends now, and just the way I feel so happy inside and just okay with who I am. There's so many good musicians out there and so many good writers, and there was a point, a lot of years of my life, where I was comparing myself to them. And, even now there's this tiny child inside of me going, you don't belong on this screen with these amazing people. But now I do. I'm just happy to be me. And what I've realized is, if I just shed all my ego and I just settle into my own essence, that's all I ever need to be. And I'm already there right now. So this all started for me when I was in my teens somewhere. And I won't go into the whys, because I really don't know how to have the whys. But there was always this desperate need inside for me to prove that I mattered. And I wasn't particularly getting great grades. I wasn't a great athlete in my teens. And I was causing a lot of trouble because I had this rebellious nature, and I had all this giant energy, and I didn't know where to direct it. And all of a sudden, the banjo came into my life. And it was this beautiful release of pure, healthy, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm a creative, and I had no idea. And all of a sudden, all this energy inside of me found this, vessel. And the problem came that I became so passionate about it that I got pretty good. And then I joined a band, and my band got really good, and we left school and we moved to Nashville and we started doing these tours with these big acts. And all of a sudden, the playful joy started to dissipate, and in its place became, well, for one, I moved to Nashville, and I used to be the best banjo player in South Carolina, and now I'm not even the best banjo player on my street. And so all of a sudden, I started to have that kind of fear. And also, it was a matter of 9/11 happened the day my dystonia came about, which is a whole other story. But there was a lot of weird stuff going on in my life. And we were touring and trying to make a living, trying to break through. And somewhere in all that pressure, my right hand just snapped. And my neuro pathways just stopped communicating, and my fine motor skills stopped working. My index finger and middle finger just gave up. And long story short, I spent about 20 years visiting doctors around the world and trying different things, really for about 2 years before I left the band. And then the next 18, taking on various attempts. Meanwhile, I started writing, and all of a sudden I found a new healthy way to express myself. And I reconnected with the muse for the first time, and it was absolutely wonderful again. But something happened. All of a sudden, I started getting acclaim and doing well and becoming a bestseller. And I started to realize a little bit of fame, I suppose, and people looking at me and me being able to say, you see, I do matter again. Though I don't play banjo and I lost all that, I do matter again. And then it became, okay, I'm top 10 with this new release, but I want to be number one. And then I get to number one and it's still not enough. And I started having an arm issue, and it was unbelievable. It was like the two passions in my life were completely killing me. And that time, as a novelist, this was 4 years ago, I was a successful novelist and I was paying the bills. My wife was not working, and I had something new in my life, as opposed to stepping on stage at the Grand Ole Opry or in front of Travis Tritt. It was this new world of deadlines. And I just started crumbling under the pressure, and that's what gave me my arm issues. And it very much, thank goodness, through Victor Wooten's video, I saw that Ruth was trying new ways to address these blocks, and she happened to be in Spain while I was living in Spain. And we connected, and we worked so long without the banjo even in my hands. And just now we're starting to play around with the banjo. But what I realized was there were blocks that were so much deeper than the banjo. It wasn't about me fixing my hand ever. It wasn't about that. It was about fixing this piece of me that was sad, and this inner child of me that just wanted to scream, I matter. I need someone to realize that I matter. And all this was just stepping in the way of my flow. And what Brainspotting was, and Ruth, please wave your hand if I'm going past time. I'm not really looking at the clock. But as we started working together, I realized, like I said earlier, that I just need to shine my light. And that's plenty. Oscar Wilde says that quote, be yourself, because that's the one thing no one else can be. And we worked through kind of these feelings, and the way we did it without getting into the depths of Brainspotting, which, I think Ruth's book does wonderfully. She guided me to start feeling into the depths of me. And I saw a video yesterday that was so perfect. I saw Flea talking, the bassist for Red Hot Chili Peppers, speaking about why he quit drugs. And he said, it's because I want to feel the pain, the fear, the excitement. I want to feel every bit of life. And I thought that is essentially Brainspotting. It's a meditation on steroids. It's a way of connecting exactly with what hurts inside. And instead of stepping away from it, pushing it away, it's sitting there with it, even when it's slightly or incredibly uncomfortable, and facing it head on and just consuming it and allowing it to be part of you. And this is where I kind of started to realize my B, my A to B transition is, I was such a, I wanted to talk about discipline and constancy, and Ruth's point, one of her points in her book about just grinding so hard. I used to practice longer than everyone, and I always claim like I might not be the most talented, but I'm the guy practicing the most on the bus, period. And when I wrote, I'm the guy who's got my butt in the chair when everybody else is going to sleep. And it was almost this like bragging thing. Whereas what I lost is if we watch Yo-Yo Ma or a wonderful musician who's fully in tune, what I lost is that joy and playfulness. And I started to find that again. And I sat down with the banjo a couple of months ago, and it wasn't from this place of, I want to prove to the people who don't even know I'm a banjo player now. It's been 20 years. I want to prove to all these people that like I'm double matter. I'm a writer and I can play the banjo. Instead of that, I just said to myself, and forgive me, I'm just opening wide open because this is the only way we can heal, Ruth, right? I think I'm not holding back. Instead of that, I just became a student of the banjo again and a student of life again. And instead of trying to fast forward to this place where I'm back on stage, it's much more like, I'm just going to sit here and just be joyful that I have two hands and I can rest this banjo in my lap and I can create some sounds and maybe learn a new tune. And all of a sudden, my hands started working for the first time in 20 years. I could cry thinking about it. And now I'm starting to, and it's the same way with my writing. If I use Ruth's method and I just dive into the deep essence of myself, I'm able to play banjo. I can even turn it on and off, and I can write without any of my ego being in the way. And I can say, as I read your book, it was just such a nice reminder because I think you capture everything that we've done in such a beautiful way. And I think I'll just read it over and over again and realize and just be reminded because, like I said, I'm a work in progress, and I have some stage things going on. I don't know that I could play perfectly in front of 20,000 people right now. But I know that if I'm sitting in a safe place on my back porch and I just connect and shed my ego and shed my adaptations, I can play better than I ever have and in a really joyful way. And there's no trying at all. It just flows out of me. And the last thing I really wanted to say, which I think has brought this whole thing home, there's that saying that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And there's another saying that you can't get out of a problem the same way you got into it. Well, what I'm learning is that damaged inner child in me is what brought about Focal Dystonia. And now I'm playing from a different person. I'm the essence now. I'm not this broken little boy. I'm stepping in as this powerful giant essence. It's really not me at all. I'm just plugging into everything. And when I do that, when I plug into the universe, it just flows and it's really, really easy. And that's what Ruth has done for me, I think, in a nutshell. I could go on for years, but.
So thank you, Boo. Thank you so much for sharing.
You got it.
Dan, how would you feel if I hand over to you now?
Yeah, it's so fun to hear you talk about this, Boo, because there are so many points in common in my own story with yours. Realizing after trying to make it as a professional musician for 13 years and clawing my way up to the bottom of the California music scene, and noticing that I wasn't having any fun and I was a bundle of nerves. And so my trajectory was I went to college at age 34 and ended up getting a degree in neuroscience and studied the neuroscience of music. And it was when I was in graduate school that I started playing again and I started having fun again. And that's actually when my musical career took off, because I was no longer, the pressure of trying to make a living at it and to be the best was just crippling. Ego crippling and spiritually and psychically crippling, because you're never going to be the best. I mean, who's better, Bob Dylan or Bruce Springsteen? Bela Fleck or Victor Wooten? There is no, best is meaningless in that context. And yet, as you say, Boo, our ego drives us towards that. And When I started having fun again, other musicians noticed it. And it doesn't matter if I play a wrong note. It's not about that anymore. So now I get to perform with Victor and with Bobby McFerrin and with Sting, and I'm not the best musician. They can have the best they want, but I'm probably having the most fun. And that gets to the topic of Ruth's book of perfectionism, and it's a very nice segue, I think. Perfectionism, of course, I think is a certain amount of perfectionism is necessary for us to improve ourselves and to want to improve ourselves. But too much of it is, to use Boo's word, crippling, or you completely shut down. Either your body shuts down, or your spirit, or your heart shuts down if you're overly perfectionistic. And I think a lot of John Coltrane, who was not the most technically proficient or precise saxophone player, nor was Miles Davis on the trumpet. Their ideas seemed to be so massive that they couldn't squeeze them out through their horns. And the horn would get in the way. And boy, I would rather have that problem, the opposite one, where I have no ideas and I can play those no ideas perfectly. So I think it's the nature of art that we want to have ideas that are bigger than our ability to execute. And then it's the nature of our brains that we are exquisitely sensitive to that gap between what we imagined and what we executed. And being aware of that gap, again, that's important to get better, and to keep trying to get your ideas out. Look at Van Gogh. I think he painted sunflowers 7 times. Why? Well, I'm assuming he didn't like the first 6. There was something in his vision that the first 6 didn't get, but then after the 7th sunflower, he stops. Same with his series of irises. You listen to great songwriters and they keep coming back to some of the same ideas, and then eventually they drop them. One example is Paul McCartney, whose father was a British dance hall musician. And so we see Paul playing with trying to write in the British dance hall tradition with When I'm 64 and Honey Pie and Your Mother Should Know. And he keeps coming back to this and trying to nail it. And then finally, on his album Venus and Mars, he writes a song called You Gave Me the Answer. And as soon as I heard it, I went, wow, that is British dance hall music. It's got that funny little voice they had back then that sounds really strained and like telephonic. And he nailed it. And sure enough, he never went back for that again. It was like, okay, he perfected it at least as good as he could. What I found inspiring in my own music, in recording, I'll separate recording and performance. There's nothing like recording yourself to hear the flaws. And I've recorded probably 50 songs, and I've put out 2 CDs of my own music, and I've played on other people's records. And all I hear are the flaws. I don't hear anything other than the flaws, and it drives me crazy. But the thing that's helped me to get through it and not keep going back over and over and over again with the tweezers is I listen to Steely Dan demos. Now, to me, Steely Dan is the height of exquisitely produced and executed music. Whether you like it or not is beside the point. But every note is in exactly the right place. And Donald Fagen once spent 3 months editing drum machine parts to get them precise to the millisecond, beyond where anybody else in the world could hear it but him, he. Grammar. And he would go through 5 drummers on a song, to get exactly the right drummer, 5 bass players. But when you listen to the demos, they're terrible. And some of the Beatles demos are terrible. But knowing that they were able to get from that, boy, it sounds like they really can't play, to a beautiful, pristine, exquisite record, makes me think, oh, well, I just got to trust the process. And it's like Boo and editing a book. When I edit a book, my first drafts are terrible. I end up doing 50 or 60 drafts of every book I've published, and I just trust the process. It's never going to be perfect, but it's going to get better if I just keep working at it. Now, and there is some point where you have to say, that's as good as I can do, or it's 97% of the way there, and it's more important for me to get more ideas out that are almost there than fewer ideas that are perfect. You know, the perfectionism is why we don't have more Steely Dan records. I would rather have had a 95% Steely Dan record and an extra one of them than, you know, the small number of 100% Steely Dan records. So we all have to make that choice. What is good enough for me? But I think trying to do your best and listening back and going, yeah, that's about as good as I can get it. That's a healthy way to approach it, and maybe say, well, that's as good as I think I can get it. I'm going to try, maybe I can get 5% better, and you find you bootstrap your way up. I produced 3 Blue Oyster Cult records, and one of the things we did back then was Buck Dharma, the guitarist, would take 10 or 15 solos, and then we'd sit in the control room and we'd pick out the best parts of each one and make a composite track. And then he would go home and learn that and then play 10 more. So he was constantly improving himself based on the bits and pieces of ideas that we strung together. I do the same in my writing. I do the same in my music. Now, to circle back to live performance, as Boo said, you know, who can play in front of 20,000 people and not make a mistake? If you can, you're not taking any risks. And the audience wants you to take risks. And they want you to fail. Livingston Taylor, a wonderful performer and instructor at Berklee College of Music, says, the audience is there to have an emotional experience and to get some kind of transformation in their lives from the performer, to go through some emotional journey with you for the evening. And there's not a whole lot they can give back to you other than applause. And that feels kind of facile to an audience member, Livingston says. And if the performer really moves the audience feels that they have this debt, this asymmetry. What am I giving to the performer? The performer has given so much to me. Livingston says the audience wants nothing more than to forgive you for your humanity, forgive you for your humanness and your flaws. And if you make a mistake up there, and it's an honest mistake, they so want to forgive you. And that's a great gift. And playing with Victor for these last 10 years really schooled me in realizing it's not about me. Nobody is sitting in the audience thinking, oh, he just played an E flat when he meant to play an E. They don't know what I meant to play, and they're not thinking of it in that level. It's not like a jury of critics are sitting out there with the score in front of them and watching whether I hit every note or not. And, you know, the great thing about Victor and again, Bobby McFerrin, there's no judgment on the part of the people on the stage. And so that allows me and the other people on the stage to suspend judgment and just let it happen. And whatever happens, it's fine. And to embrace that and accept it as part of the fun. And yeah, you take risks. And if you think in terms of perfectionism, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the man himself.
Hello.
I was just talking about you. I hope your ears were burning.
They're burning in a good way.
I think I'm done with my 10 minutes.
That's brilliant, Dan. Thank you for sharing that. So I'd just like to do a really little summary, and then I want to talk about books as well before we move on. So it sounds to me that what both of you are talking about, and this is something that I think Boo and Craig, you'll agree, is so deeply woven into everything that we've been doing, is that so much of this it's not about not working hard. Of course, we have to put the hours in, right? It's not about not being able to hear, having that sensitivity to hear whether I've managed to my creative ideas have come out the way that I've been visioning them inside. We need those, right? the difficulty is when we are not in self-acceptance and kindness with ourselves in that process. When we start beating ourselves up for not having done it well enough, or you know, this kind of negative view that there's something wrong with me, there's something bad with me, that just creates this crippling that you talk about, Boo, and a kind of contracted inner experience, both physically but also mentally, emotionally and spiritually, rather than being in an expansive experience of that. Would that be a kind of a nice summary that would pull together, Boo and Dan, what you've been talking about?
Yeah, perfect. I think that expansive is the right word. Sometimes, you know, we close in on ourselves and we think that little old me that we talk about is what needs to be creating and doing our thing. But little old me is just needs to open up and connect with the power of everything around us. And that's when we do something marvelous.
Yeah.
I would add to that everything Boo said, and then it's when I'm recording or writing a song or performing on a stage, it's not about me. It's about the song.
Right.
I have to, you know, what Victor has helped me to realize is that me is not the point. I mean, Victor and I show off a little bit, but that's stage performance, that's stagecraft, that's different. But it's in the service of art, and it's in the service of an emotional experience for the audience. It's not about us, it's about them. And if we get out of our own way and stop thinking, oh, it's me, I'm doing this, or I just made this mistake, or you know, anything like that, the audience senses that, like a dog sensing fear, you know. But the audience came there for a good time, and our job is to give it to them. And if they attach that good time to us, that's fine. But we can't be thinking, I caused this. It's music that caused it.
Great, that's lovely. Thank you. Dan, you have a new book coming out really soon. Will you tell us a little bit about it?
It's called I Heard There Was a Secret Chord, Music is Medicine. It comes out in 2 weeks. It's available for pre-order everywhere. You can go to daniellevitin.com and there's a bunch of links. And it's a book I've been working on really for 20 years. It's the book I've always wanted to write about the medicinal effects of music for healing and treating injury, disease, depression, but also for helping us to live more full, creative, and happy lives. It's based on 4,000 papers, peer-reviewed papers that I read so that you wouldn't have to. I summarized them there, but they're all in the back if you want to read them. There's an extensive notes section, so you know I'm not just BSing you. And it's interwoven with stories of working with great artists like Victor and Joni Mitchell, Stevie Wonder, Roseanne Cash, and Bobby McFerrin. And it's really a look towards the future at how we can all incorporate music in our lives, and you know, the scientific evidence for it. What's going on in the brain and the body when you listen to and perform music.
Great. Wow. I am definitely reading that.
And there's
Brilliant.
a blurb on it by Victor Wooten himself.
Hey, super. Thank you. And Boo, you also have a new novel coming out next week.
Yes, An Echo in Time. And this was really a product of Ruth and I working together. Ruth was really instrumental in this. It's about a young woman named Charlie in Boston who is facing a tremendous amount of red lights in her life, and she's right on the edge of giving up when someone introduces her to family constellation therapy, which is the idea that our family unit, including those dead and gone, our whole family tree, create this constellation. And if something is out of balance, that can feed forth into future generations. And Charlie goes to Costa Rica to a therapy session, which is, it's a maybe the best analogy I can make, like a seance where she figures out that something very violent and ugly happened in the past with her family tree, and she sets out to England to figure out exactly what that was and try to bring some green lights into her life.
Great. Wonderful. And I mean, I am a huge Boo Walker fan. I think I've read all your books now, Boo, and just love them. You're just such an amazing novelist. So I hope that you all really enjoy both Dan and Boo's books when they come out. So let me hand over to Victor Wooten. I don't even need to introduce you, Vic, because I'm sure everyone here knows you, but I will do a little introduction, just because I'd like to. For me, above all, Victor, you are just a phenomenal human being that creates goodness in this world wherever you are, and spreads that as much as you are able to, and you know the beauty of that. But of course you are also astonishing bass player. Most people will probably know you from playing with your brothers, the Wooten brothers, and also with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. So Victor, I just would like to give some space for you to share your wisdom with us today.
First of all, I appreciate it. I really do. And I'm sorry I'm coming in a little late. I have about 50 people right outside here. It's the last day of a camp that we call the Spirit of Music. And actually, Dan was here just a few days ago. And we have Eileen McCusick, who works with tuning forks. She's outside. And Geraldine Glass, who works with Crystal Bowles, is out there, as well as some other instructors, but a lot of wonderful people. And I don't claim to be an expert at any of it, so I'm not going to talk like I am. And I'm not saying anyone is talking like they are, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people call me an expert, and I just know what I know, and I'll admit what I don't know. And I'll also admit that maybe I don't know what I think I know. I just like to try to stay open. And if I can associate with great people, I will learn more. And what I learn, I like to offer to people. My main goal in all of this is to get people, to help people learn to love themselves again. And it seems like that is, at least in my short life, I'll be 60 in a few weeks, that seems to be a growing crisis, is that people don't like who they are. And we're the one person that we can never get away from, is us. And I see people trying to get away from themselves way too much by masking it with something artificial or whatever, and then going even as far as taking their own lives. Successful people, successful stars who the world loves, people who are proven success, and they still don't like themselves. Mm-hmm. So my camps that I do, this is the 25th year, behind the scenes is all about that. I use music to get people here, and my hopes is that they fall in love with themselves. And if they can't do that yet, then fall in love with me. I'm going to be the best I can in front of you to show you something positive. And if you're going to put me up on a pedestal, that's a good sign to me, because it shows me what you can see. You can see goodness. And if you have to see it in me first, okay, I'll be your example. Because it's not really me, it's what you see. So I'm not doing it egotistically, overinflated ego. I'm just trying to give you something. I'm gonna try my best to turn it back on you in a minute. Not by coming off that pedestal you put me on, but by bringing you up on it with me. so that you realize that we are equal in the sense that you are you and I am me. That makes us equal. To quote my mother, who would be considered religious, I'll say what I've heard her say over and over, and I hope I don't offend anyone by sounding religious by quoting her. But Mom would always say that God didn't make any mistakes. And then she would say, and he definitely didn't make one in you. And if there's any truth to that, which I believe there is, in the same way that I can look outside and see these buildings that I know someone created, I can look at all this beauty in life and say that something created it. I don't care what we call the creator. I think we all, some kind of way, instinctively know that something greater than us created all this beauty in the world. All this stuff we see, trees, plants, birds. There's a creator. And I don't think that creator made a mistake. And definitely not in you. My main goal is to get, as best I can, myself back to that place of knowing and loving that person. And I think I'm doing pretty good with myself, even though I still have struggles. But what I found is in the best way to help myself is to help other people find themselves. Do I know how to do it? I don't know how to. I mean, I have some ways that might work, but it's a joint effort. And when I found people who have struggles in life, and there's a bunch of us here at this camp that's going on right outside this room, I can always trace it back to what people think of themselves. Always, if we get there. Because what other people think of us has been imprinted in us somewhere. What other people did to us is imprinted in there somewhere. And I'm not the expert, but I think it's what we think about what people did to us that is making us stuck. Or what I thought about myself that's making me stuck. I am dealing with focal dystonia in both hands. More shows up more in my fretting hand. And it was really, really nice meeting Ruth online and her asking me when I first noticed it. When I first noticed the dystonia, which was, over 25 years ago now, and what was going on in my life at that time. And it really opened up some windows that I had closed, because there were some parts in my life that I didn't want to look at. So I don't even know if I'm talking about the right things at all, but I realized when it started to come on, my two youngest kids were getting to that age where they could speak. And I would come off tour and they would be so happy, but they'd say, "Daddy, how long are you home this time?" That's a dagger in the heart. Dagger. It doesn't seem like it, but it's a dagger. I tear up even mentioning that every time. So I know it's deep in there somewhere, because I can't even say it without the tearing. It doesn't seem like that's much, but wow, I realized, man, my kids are missing their dad. Or, how long are you home this time? And I'm realizing these little 3-year-olds, are affected. But I don't know. They're grown now. My oldest is 26. The other one that was little is 23. They're old and seem to be doing well. And I hope that my absence didn't affect them negatively. But I'm realizing how that little thing has affected me. But I believe it's because of how I held on to it. not because of the kids. It's my thought about it. I'm some kind of way putting that dagger in myself. But if I could get to that place where I know I did my best, could I have done better? Possibly, but I can't change that now. I did my best for the right reasons, I believe. It allowed my wife not to have to work. She homeschooled the kids. When I was home, I was totally home 100%. But what I'm saying is that I believe my daggers at least come from me. And I really appreciate Ruth helping me look at them. Because my hands are getting better, slowly but surely. Well, actually, my hands are fine. It's just when my brain tells them to play the bass, my fingers seem to rebel. But, you know, in my short time that I can stay here right now, I would just say whatever we can do to take the pressure off of ourselves and know that the Creator, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, didn't make a mistake in us. Did not make a mistake. They gave us a fingerprint that's never been here in the history of humankind, past or present or future. You will never be here again. That means you're special. You have a gift no one else in the world has. And your gift is not a mistake. Your fingerprint is not a mistake. So let's give ourselves a break and know that we are doing our best, and lighten up on ourselves. And the thing about what Dan mentioned is true. When we play music, it's not so much about us, even though it kind of is, but you can take the attention off of yourself by giving your gift. If you're a musician, a doctor, whatever, everything you've worked on, especially with music, is meant to give away. And in the same way, at Christmas or birthdays or weddings, giving gifts is so much fun. If you're playing a concert, give a gift every night. Don't worry about what the audience thinks of you. Put more attention on what you think of them. I love this audience. I don't have a career without you. I'd play music at home by myself, but I get to travel the world because of you. Let me give you this gift tonight. And I found that to be a very relieving moment when I take the attention off of what you think of me. You're going to hear every mistake. I'm going to give you me as a gift. And yes, I make mistakes, so I'm giving you that also. And I found that heavily releases a lot of the tension of the nerves and things like that. And I found that, wow, if people are at my concert, it's because they love me. The people who don't love me didn't come. So what am I afraid of? There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. And so anyway, take that for whatever it's worth. And I'll turn it back to you, Ruth. And if any questions. And again, I apologize that I'm late and that I can't stay the whole time. But I am so grateful to be included. There's a few names here I'm not familiar with, so I'm writing them down here because I'm going to do my own research so I can learn from you all too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor.
You're very welcome, Craig. Thank you.
Greg, I would like to hand right over to you, if I may, because I know that you have done such an amazing piece of work with yourself around self-love. So just for everyone, Craig is an amazing bluegrass player, plays banjo and guitar, also plays upright bass, but banjo, I believe, is really where your soul is. Is that right, Craig? So
That's right.
Hand over to you, and let's just love to hear from you your thoughts on this.
Well, thank you so much, man. It's amazing to hear all these stories. I just love it. I teared up during Victor's. I'm a crier. I love crying. It was just beautiful. Okay, so what happened with me was I started playing music when I was 12. before that, my parents were crazy about music and had all the 45s you could imagine. We used to put on Zorba the Greek when I was like 4 and dance to it because it would speed up, and I could just feel the music flowing through me. And I tried the accordion. My mom thought that would be good. It made me cry when I played it, so I let that go. Then I tried the banjo, and as soon as I started to play the banjo, I felt like a set of Christmas lights that got plugged in, and I just came alive. And I was 12 years old, and 50 years ago, and I right away connected with it and just felt this outpouring of love into the instrument, and practiced 5 hours a day. I was kind of an awkward kid, loved to be home, watch the Flintstones, play the banjo. And by the time I was 14, I was actually playing music. It turned into music, and I started teaching and then started playing in bands. But when I was in my first band, when I was in my late 20s, or late teens, I started to realize that I was listening to all these great players, and I thought I needed to be like them. I needed to know everything that they knew. And as I was playing, I felt stupid. I didn't think, I don't know anything. And I don't know how to back up. I don't know how to make the singer sound better. And when I started to play my right hand, on the banjo, I used 3 fingers. These 2 fingers would stiffen so much that I'd get cramps in my hands. And that was in my late teens. I didn't know what was going on. But as I went along, I still loved the music, but I just felt all this pressure to be better and better and better. And I realized later, especially when I met Ruth, that I had a deep, deep perfectionism. And my perfectionism, I thought, was a gift because it allowed me to just want to get better and better all the time. But it wasn't. It wasn't a gift at all. It was a curse because even my grandmother as a teenager said, "Craig, when is enough ever going to be enough with you?" I just couldn't stop driving myself. And it was because, a lot like Boo, I wanted people to see me. I didn't feel seen. I felt like I was invisible. And my way to be seen was to play the banjo and get all the feedback. And what started to happen was I started to overplay. I played too fancy of stuff. I kind of got to be outrageous. I bought a hearse in high school, drove around a 1952 Buick hearse, just bought myself a blue snakeskin Earl Scruggs banjo. It just got more and more outrageous as things went along. But I always connected to music. And what happened was people would say something to me, and in your book, Ruth, your new book, Free to Perform, I realized that I connected with the attuned empath, and I think that's what I was, or that's what I am. I could feel through music, I could connect with my fellow players, and I could feel where the music was going, and people were always talking about playing with the metronome, and you had to be in time with the metronome. And I realized early on as a drummer in a dance band that it wasn't about playing perfect time. It was, and I wasn't setting the time as the drummer. The bass player wasn't setting the time as the player. We were all setting the time as a group together. And I could feel that time in me as a group. And as the banjo player, I felt like the drummer as well. And there were times when we locked in together that I would be taking a solo and forgetting about trying to impress people or anything. And I would just take a solo during a break, and my eyes would roll back in my head, and I could just feel this. I felt like a beam of golden light coming out of me and going to the audience. And what Victor was saying about a gift, I felt like forever I was taking from the audience. I was looking for my external validation, my validation externally, and getting it from the audience. I was really asking them to like me, asking them to give me applause. But when I stopped doing that, and I'm giving my gift that I had spent so many years developing, giving it out to the audience, that's when I really felt connected. But I couldn't connect to that very often. And about 5 years ago, I stopped being able to play. I was playing the banjo, and all of a sudden my index finger felt drunk. And the more I played, all of a sudden my thumb would bend like this. My index finger would go in, and my fingers were trying to get me to stop playing. It did not want to let me play. So I switched to guitar, which I started playing when I was 12 as well. And I did it for about a year or two in with the band. But then all of a sudden, my guitar pick started pushing away from the strings, and I felt like my thumb was going to dislocate. And I realized my thumb was trying to push the pick away so I couldn't play. And inside, I could feel that my brain said, Craig, you've been trying this forever, like 45 years, and you're not getting any joy from it. Let's stop you from playing this, and let's do something else that gives you joy. And that was it. I could not play music anymore. And Julie, my wife, my dear wife, said to me, Craig, you're hard to be around. This is about the same time. And I said, why am I hard to be around? And she said, because you don't love yourself. And I said, love myself? I don't even like myself. And she said, well, there you go. And I realized she was right. I didn't even like myself. I looked in the mirror and I thought, wow, you look like a donkey. Like you're just, I just couldn't feel any love for myself. And so I started to listen to people like Pat Martino, one of the greatest jazz guitarists who ever lived. In 1980, he had a brain aneurysm after rising to the very top of the heap as a jazz musician. And when they fixed his brain aneurysm, he forgot who he was. He forgot to play guitar, everything. So he had to start at zero and relearn. And he said, and this really affected me. He said that when, before he had his aneurysm, everything just evolved around the guitar. And what after his aneurysm, he started to realize he needed to learn how to write again, learn how to use a knife and fork, learn how to dress properly, and then learn how to play the guitar again. And all those things were just tools in his life, and the guitar just became a tool in his life to express himself. And that really stuck with me. So I started to figure out, why don't I love myself? And I realized I came from a family where everybody held a grudge. Like if somebody said something to you, you held this grudge, and every now and then you'd bring it out like a little dog and you'd pet it and feed it and grow it. And those grudges, they really held me to the past. And just like Pat Martino said, he couldn't sit there and think, oh, I was one of the greatest jazz guitar players in the world. He had to think, well, here I am now in this moment with my pencil. I'm going to learn how to do this. And the only way that I could find a way to get into the present was to forgive anyone that had ever done anything to me that I had a grudge for them with. And I did something called a loving kindness meditation, and it really helped. And I got to the point where I had forgiven everyone. And then I realized if I could forgive people I didn't even really like, who had done things to me that I didn't like, I could forgive myself. So I started to forgive myself for all the stupid things that I did. I used to sit there and go, oh, I can't believe I said that. Ooh, when I was 10 or something. Then I started forgiving myself. And then I told Julie, once I had forgiven everyone that I had a grudge with, and I'd forgiven myself, I felt like I could back up to a cliff and take a knife and cut the freezer off my back that I've been carrying around my whole life. All of a sudden now I can start to feel me. And I tell you, when I watched Victor Wooten being interviewed by Ruth, I knew who Victor was. I had met him once a long time ago. I had taken a week-long camp with Bela Fleck. And when I saw her talking to Victor, and then she had written this book called The Focal Dystonia Cure, I read it. And I was blown away that there was actually a way to start coming back into myself. I had lost myself, and I realized from her new book, the Free to Perform, that as part of, I wrote this down because I think this is really important, that I realized, this is right from her book, if we didn't receive adequate attachment and attunement and bonding when we were young, our gift, my attuned empath gift, like I was very attuned to people, was used to hurt us. You know, some people turned that around on me, bullies at school, they made fun of me and everything. And that your nervous system gets locked into survival mode. And I was locked into survival mode. And I lost the connection with my own needs. And I was overly focused on what everyone else wanted. And I became a people pleaser. And that's exactly what happened. I avoided conflict. I felt overly responsible for everybody else, with just making sure everybody else was fine. And I just forgot about myself. And it created all this tension inside. And through Ruth's book, I'll tell you what I learned from her book and what really, really helped me. I made some notes because I can get off on tangents like crazy, but this means so much to me, and Ruth means so much to me. From her book, I learned the very first thing, the attunement repair exercise. lying in the morning just as you're waking up, feeling your feet, feeling inside out, feeling your ankle joints going all up your body, right up to the top of your head, inside your ears, inside your mouth, out to your fingertips. And I did that for a month or two and started to get back into my body. I had disassociated and lost myself. So I started to love myself. I started to accept myself. And then I started to feel myself again. I had lost that feeling. Then the next step that I learned, and this is so important, was finding my zero state, starting through the attunement exercise and making it up to my hip bones and feeling right in the center of the bowl of my hip, right there. That is the center of my confidence, the center of my gravity, the center of me. And once I started to feel into my center, I started to calm down. I used to be just a crazy guy. And I started to feel this inner calmness and everything. The next step is to feel the kindness state. And through all these beautiful somatic exercises that I've done with Ruth, I'm able to really attune to myself, and I could feel the kindness state right under my breastbone. Times that I've been extremely kind to people when they've been extremely kind to me. I was a firefighter. I mean, I used to kick the front door into a house that was on fire and people were screaming, running out of, and I would run in to find somebody, stuff them in my jacket and haul them out and risk my life. And I loved doing it. And I felt the kindness that I felt when I did that. And the next thing is to find your zero state, then your kindness state, and have them meet with each other. And I could feel that happening in me. And then Ruth told me to imagine a flower blossoming from there and moving out through me. And, I could feel that moving, this beautiful flower with the kindness and the solidity I had inside, flowing out through me and out through my hands. And I told Ruth, I live near the ocean here and I can see the kelp forest. And I felt like a piece of kelp that was just like flowing in the water. And it's such a beautiful thing. And then she said, okay, hold your instrument now and feel that flowing into your instrument. And I got it. It took a while, and working with Ruth allowed me to find that. And so this summer I went on playing upright bass now. My brain still thinks when I play like this that I'm doing something bad for me, like playing the guitar, holding it like this, playing the banjo like this, but the upright bass you play like this. My brain doesn't know I'm actually playing music. I stood on stage last month, and all of a sudden I'm like, someone had said to me, oh, you're the weak link in that band, aren't you? Like, those kind of things, they used to deeply affect me. And I realized through her book that the attuned empath, that's what you do. Somebody can say one little thing and it opens a crack that's just as wide, and all of the bad things you feel about yourself just flow to the surface. So I'm standing there, we're getting ready to play our first song, and my fingers on my right hand are wanting to curl. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make it through this set? And then I stopped. I found my zero state. I found my kindness state. I found my flow state. When they met, the flower bloomed right out through me. It bloomed right out through my instrument. I looked at the audience. I felt this beautiful golden light come out from me, and a voice in my head said, I am enough. I've been playing this music for 50 years. I know what the bass is supposed to sound like. I know what this music does. I feel it. I am the music. And I want to give this to the audience. I started to play and my fingers let go. And I played beautifully. I had just had the greatest time. And so I can say from my own experience that with Ruth's help and her amazing book and the amazing exercises that I've learned from there, that I have let go of all of the things I need to impress. I don't need to impress. I realize I'm a beautiful person. I'm a really beautiful person. And I want to share my beauty, and I want to see your beauty, and I want our beauty to come together. Whether I'm playing music with you, whether I'm talking to you, whether I'm listening to a story you're telling me, I realize the only thing I have right now is this moment. I don't care about the future anymore. I don't care about the past. I mean, I do care, but they don't affect me. But I love this moment. And I love the moments that I have with people, and that's really what matters with me. And now with the music, I can share those moments, and I can share me, and I can take you in while you're listening to my music, and we're giving a gift to each other. And it's beautiful.
Thank you, Craig. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So So I would like to introduce you all now to Sergio Pallotelli, who is an amazing flute player. I had the great pleasure of being in Italy with Sergio for a couple of weeks ago for 10 days. Amazing concert that Sergio played for us with another one of my all-time favorite flute players, Paul Davis, and also Sergio is a phenomenal teacher. I think that's been my most beautiful learning experience with the flute that I spent in these 10 days with Sergio. Beautiful teacher technically, amazing technical teachings, but I think more than anything was just the environment, the safety, the love, the care, to feel cared for as a student, and that my teacher is caring for me as a person and caring for me musically, and that being the basis of the teaching for me was a very special experience. So thank you very much for being with us here, Sergio, and I would love to hear your words of wisdom and for you to share your words of wisdom to all of us.
Wisdom, I don't know. Thank you, Ruth. I was trying to stop crying because of you all, and here we go again. But we're all criers, I think, or several of us are, so that's a lovely thing. Well, I had everything prepared over these days. I was just with Ruth, working hard and enjoying life hard and music and art, and listening to your inspiring talks. I'm completely confused now, so I'm just going to ad lib and sort of continue this this improvisation and going. I'm a classical musician, and I need to say that because we're the psychopaths. I mean, we're the ones that really have mental issues beyond anyone. Because this reoccurring theme that I'm loving is the search for perfection, the search for oneself, which can get pretty morbid as well. As serene as that concept can make us, I think if we try to bite it and want it, by all means, it can bite us back. Obviously, the search for success, which is, I just think, comes with being a human being. Fortunately or unfortunately, you know, the balance would be nice, but I mean, this hunger for success equals validation. I think Boo talked about it at the beginning. I mean, all those elements which technically could be very positive in our growth happen to then all together be these small poisons that when they then take over, I don't, for lack of, you're all such good speakers, I mean, they ruin us. They hurt us more than ruin us. And before we know it, and many times, I mean, I'm talking as artists, as performers, we wake up with it because of somebody like Ruth or because of some kind of awakening. We wake up and the monster is too big in a lot of cases, which means that the fight is bigger. I mean, the battle towards serenity is bigger. And I mean, maybe battle is the wrong word, because it's just a path, a journey towards serenity that we're looking for. But when the monster is big, then it's just a lot more of a path, and it's more uphill, and it's raining all the time, and it's snowing, and fire is falling on us, and it seems impossible. And because we're human with different characters, because that's how we're born, we either have the resilience or the particular moment to get out of the path of the storm or not. I have not read Ruth's book because I just met her, but it was a meeting, something like the Milky Way crashing into right where I was at my festival. And by working music together and then sitting at the dinner table, immediately connecting on all these issues, was how we couldn't stop talking about all of this. So all these quotes came to mind. I'm a big reader. This is how we started talking. I'm a big reader, and I can't wait to read your books, because any day that I come away with a new book suggestion is a good day. But I think the search for perfection comes from, it's sort of what I'd like to address, comes from, especially as a classical musician, comes from the fact that when a wrong note happens, let's say our craft as classical musicians is reproducing the same damn notes exactly how they are by the composer, in many cases for 300, 400, 500 years, yet searching to bring our story, our particular emotion to those same notes for 400 years. And that's where the challenge is, and that's where this really, really big monster of we must play perfectly, because that's what the page says, comes from, and it's very intimidating. In modern times, unfortunately, we read music. In the further back we go, the more the classical musicians, as we think of it today, that term isn't even right anymore, was more of what the jazz musician is today, the folk musician. They wrote and played their music. They heard it and they actuated it. The search for perfection, to me, comes with the misunderstanding that it's about us, like Daniel was saying. The misunderstanding that if I play perfectly, I am showing you that I'm cool, that I'm the best, that I didn't make mistakes, the guy next to me did, and therefore I am successful, therefore I get paid more. You can think of it financially, you can think of any way or form. Well, scratch all that, in my opinion, because what playing our instrument is, the only thing it is our way to express ourselves. It's the way we speak as musicians. When a poet tells a story, when we're in the era of audiobooks, when somebody reads your book because somebody is blind or because people prefer audiobooks or whatever it is, you need a voice and a human being that tells your story according to your heart, and that gets the closest to what was written. So as performers, I'm going to speak as a flutist. My flute is just the way you can hear my emotions. And the way to speak the best, I speak English not so well because it's not my first language, but the more words I know, the more chance I have to express to you in whatever language we choose as a common one, what my emotions are, what I'm about, what my life experience is, what music is to me, why I chose it, and why I'm choosing this story today to tell you, which in my case is going to be a particular piece that I chose to program. The more words I know, the more nuances I know, the more spellings I know, the better of a writer I am here in how I expose my words, equal for an instrumentalist, how well you play. So unfortunately, we're a little bit in a prison. Technique is extremely important because it's the tool that allows us to have more expression. The more tricks you know, the better you are personally for yourself at speaking, the better you can express yourself. The line is so fine to transgress over into, I made a mistake and I suck and I can't speak, that's where we risk. And I mean, we all fall into it. So, you know, a little bit of my personal story, I was a kid that I never got nervous because maybe I was too dumb to understand how difficult it is what we're trying to do. But I got really upset because I got the shakes. So as a wind player, I couldn't produce a straight, beautiful tone. It was out of tune. Everyone was always yelling at me for intonation, and I was because I had the shakes, I wasn't really in control here. And over what fixed it, I don't know what fixed it, but I think life just fixed it. Falling in love, great disappointments, family problems, deaths, great successes, personally and career-wise, emotionally and logistically, moving countries, meeting certain people, having certain people exit your life. Growing up, I think, is what fixed it. Reading a lot for me and being in nature definitely fixed it. And it seems cliche, but finding oneself, Victor, everyone here talked about that, finding yourself. Being happy with yourself, which I guess means getting to know yourself, which we don't always do. And I like Craig's situation, just because it comes to mind now, where your wife said, hey, what's up with you? Do you love yourself? And, it's for you, that was a bell, right? I mean, it was a bell. For me, I never had anyone shout the question at me, but I've hit my head to awakening several times in life, going, this isn't what you're about. How could you not see this? And for so long. So I think we're all on this path of self-discovery by knowledge, by emotional knowledge, by the field we're in knowledge. And the secret is becoming more serene. And I don't know much about focal dystonia, but I know a lot of people who have it. Alex Klein, the former principal oboe of the Chicago Symphony, if you don't know him, Ruth, you might want to look him up. He's come up with contraptions, physical things attached to the brain. And I had a student who now teaches little kids and has stopped flute completely, who was perfectly fine. And the minute his brain told him to play flute and he put this thing up to his lip, his mouth went sideways and he couldn't make embouchure. He just couldn't, he just puffed his cheeks. He could not make embouchure. Without the flute, he could blow a candle out, which is perfect flute embouchure. With the flute here, his brain, so he wasn't able to overcome it. In Andrea's case, this is sort of just a sidekick story, but he eventually found a really, really amazing companion in his life. So I'm a big romantic. I love poetry, and he found love, true love in his life. And it's a whole nother can of worms what that is. He put a vibe out that gave a whole different aura, a serene vibe out. Is it because of that he landed a great teaching job in the really important school in Bologna for small kids? He loves it. He's been doing it for 20 years. And the moral of the story is, guess what? We play duets every other week perfectly. No issues. No medication. He didn't have the situation of meeting somebody like Ruth or anyone like even people like you that get together and talk about it openly and that pour their hearts out. He didn't have that. It sort of happened for him. He's playing flute again. And so serenity is the only way I sort of live life. The mistakes, the perfection. I mean, somebody quoted Oscar Wilde, right? I mean, I think I learned so much from my mistakes. I think I'm going to keep making them, right? It's one of my favorites. It's one of my absolute favorites. I'm sure you all know, and then I'll let you go because I'm making a big soup of stuff. Kenny Werner's book, Effortless Mastery. Yeah, I mean it's sort of one of the meccas to go to. But I mean, when I didn't know this person at all, once I came to the United States a long time ago. I mean, one of the first people I met had told me, you have to read this book, and I mean, the simplicity of his story. I've met him personally, and I mean, here's a classically trained pianist who just eventually hit the wall in Carnegie Hall. beating himself up for mistakes he made. And I mean, there's that part in the book where he shakes hands with everyone. He can't even see who's in front of him. He's so upset about the mistakes he made. He's sweating. It's a Wednesday night, typical New York. You walk out of Carnegie Hall and you're the same moron that nobody knows, except you're on that stage with everyone. He's riding the bus home, and he had this thing. It's like, do you think that anyone here that's bumping into me cares that I made mistakes? And I'm so upset about it. And when he just by chance went on vacation to Brazil, he got introduced to Brazilian jazz, and he found the guru, and this whole new world opened. So, I mean, I just think that all of us have this innerly. We have it. We just have to find it. And talking to Ruth, it was just like boom, 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 boom. Here it's on the plate. How can I couldn't believe that there was a person just out of nowhere, just that signed up for my flute class, that within seconds is talking about all these issues that, that I think about so much. Ruth, you see how much I think, it's almost too much. I'm not a writer. I mean, I write for myself, but I wish I could express in writing and organize all these ideas. But I mean, I just think that this is how we serenely get away from this battle searching for perfection, which ruins everything. It ruins our vision. It ruins our emotion. It ruins our poetry we have inside. It ruins who we are, because it doesn't show it. It doesn't ruin it. It doesn't allow us to show who we are. And as artists, that's brutal. I mean, it's brutal because, I mean, how else to show what we're about if not through our art? And that's my 2 cents. But I'm so inspired by what the warmth and what you've been saying, and it's just, I wanted to like hit the bell every 2 seconds. Yeah, give you a big hug, and the physical, and just the physical parts of trying to play well, which we need to express ourselves well, blah blah. Those are because the tensions come from here, because we're not serene inside, because I hate myself. I'm not good enough. So and so got first and I got second, but I've tried for so much, and that it creates tension. I mean, Ruth, you saw it. I was like, I want to play a pianissimo note. Your brain is telling you that playing a pianissimo note is difficult. You're not serene. You tense up, right? I'm just talking as a flutist now. This passage is hard because I'm looking at the page. Everyone's messed it up in history, and I'm going to too. That's lack of serenity. That's lack of, I can do this because I'm happy with myself. And so it's a long path, but it's a good one. Really rewarding one.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm really touched by your friend's story, Andrea, I think you said his name is, because I think that comes right back to the root of it. So the book takes us on a journey. This book is about a journey home, because what all of you have talked about is being such a long way from home, right? We get such a long way from home.
Well, and then because of the forest, right?
Right. And so this book really is about the journey home. It's not something you're going to do today or tomorrow. It takes time. It takes patience, but it's also a very joyful journey. And our initial place of coming so long away from home is our attachment history. It's whether we were attuned to as children, or whether we had to come out of ourselves to stay on our carers' radars. It's whether there was a break in the connection with our mother, with our father, and the impact that has on the body. So your brain, your deep brain, has your whole life history wired into it. And your body is a reflection of that. So whatever's going in your deep brain, your body will hold that, right? Might hold that because the rib cage collapses down slightly, the shoulders come up slightly. There's that kind of little tension that I always have in here. Or, I feel like I grip my legs a little bit too hard, or I hold on to things just a little bit too tight, right? The body is expressing your life history. And that's becoming, because that's wired right in here. Now, the difficulty is how do we get to that? You know, that's really difficult. We're not going to get to that through talk therapy. We're probably not even going to get to it through things like CBT, that type of therapy, right? We can get to it with brain spotting. And we can get to it through becoming increasingly attuned to the somatic story. So if I'm able to feel the somatic story of my body, then I'm accessing directly into where my brain is holding that in terms of its history. And then very slowly, we can rewire all of that, because our brain is extraordinarily plastic. Whatever age we are, the brain is extraordinarily plastic. So we can actually start to then allow that history to unwind. And that history is held in the body, but it also is held in our relationship to ourselves, our feelings towards ourselves, our thoughts towards ourselves, our belief system, our relationship to the world, the way we see there's that whole filter that we're seeing the world and seeing ourselves through. And so through our brains, through the brain spotting, we can start to unwind all of that and come home. You know, and I give these exercises in the book. The first 5 are the absolute core to everything. Because in the first 5, that's the way we can learn to come back to the somatic experience and be able to know how to work with that. And then how we can come back into our center, back into our essence, back into the truth of who we are, not all the stories that our life created on our brain about who we are. And then I take you then from there through the rest of the journey, which is then being able to become increasingly self-aware of all these other ways that we've driven ourselves and kind of knotted ourselves up into needing to be, you know, I can never make a mistake. This feeling it would be life or death if I make a mistake. This feeling of I have to be something in order to be worthwhile. Well, you already are. I mean, Victor's expressed that so beautifully. You are already are.
That making a mistake, we should all thrive not to. But the reasons we thrive not to are so wrong.
Right. That's
right?
it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I really hope for all of you that this conversation we've had has been inspiring, and, you know, and I really hope that you will feel that if those of you who read the book and work through the exercises feel that I have done justice to be able to give you some really practical tools to be able to unwind all this, the way we've gotten all knotted up inside, and just really come home to self and to our freedom and to our peace and our serenity and joy.
I'm into that. And I also would like to add something, Ruth, if you don't mind.
Please do, Boo. Yeah.
That I think is important. Because, you know, on the surface, 4 of the 6 of us speakers have had Focal Dystonia, including you, Ruth. And so you might think that, oh, well, this book and this method is only once there's a physical manifestation, but there's not. The thing that I know that the 4 of us would say, just like Simone Biles would say, because she had the twisties, which is exactly focal dystonia, or the golfers who have the yips, is this is the best thing that could ever happen to you. I didn't know that I was living with this subtle status quo fight or flight feeling. I didn't know that I was trying to create with it. And my body forced this out of me. It ended my music career and almost ended my writing. And it forced me to do the deep work. It never had anything to do with my fingers, just like Sergio and everybody else has said. It had to do with digging down into what was in the depths of my soul. But I think there's a lot of people that are watching this, or that maybe will watch this, who don't have a physical manifestation, but they're not realizing their potential and creating at their highest level. And that's what this is really about. Maybe we're the lucky ones because we were forced to do it, but I think a lot of people can look inside and realize that maybe I haven't achieved my creative highest bar, or just my bar of being the person that I want to be. And these are the steps, and they really are. And it's such an honor to know you, Ruth. And this is like that you are getting the attention you deserve, and that people are finding you, and that people are able to read the book and sharing what that I've known for, you know, almost 4 years now is pretty cool.
You know, Boo, I have a student who is a fantastic flutist and is a stutterer. so bad that I've known her for 10 years now. Ruth, she almost came to our class. She's coming next year. And it's so bad that she couldn't, 5 languages, only writing, she couldn't speak. Slowly now she's teaching people languages, and she speaks with a very heavy stutter. But she told me once, well, she said, that stutter is focal dystonia.
Yes.
It is. She went even further just in conversation, and she said, being shy is focal dystonia. So, Boo, you were saying, it's not always visible. But if extreme shyness, where it's a problem, where it's a real hindering problem, as an artist, it could be a real hindering problem. Because being shy is mental, right? I mean, it's not something you decide to be consciously. So I thought that was interesting, that being shy, it's pretty fascinating, yeah.
I think it is. And I think, when we really have had a stable base in terms of our upbringing, the relationship, the attachment, attunement with our carers and with our parents, then we're so much less likely to have these sorts of manifestations. Then I think there is something that's important to add in, and I talk about in the book with my I talk about these 5 gifts, and one of the gifts I call the sensitive aesthetic. So I think as artists, as creative people, we are more sensitive. We do have a natural talent to be able to really distinguish qualities in a way that other people don't. And in fact, I read a fascinating article just yesterday, and I'm like my new piece of research that when we are born, we have many, many more neuronal connections. I can't remember how many more, but it's like 10 times or 100 times more than we do once we're a year old. So what happens is that the brain prunes out most of the neural connections that we have when we're born. Okay, and many of those connections are into the body. It seems that people who are what I would call neurodivergent, and I think nearly all musicians as a definition, or artists as a definition, we are neurodivergent because we have a higher level of sensitivity. It seems that is because we don't prune out as many neural connections as other people. That also means that any of the developmental traumas, any issues around attachment and attunement, we have been much more sensitive to, and it has had a much bigger impact on us than maybe it would have other people or somebody with less sensitivity. And that's the relationship then of where that then develops into something that becomes taught within us. And that might be physical tension, which might come out in something like focal dystonia, but it also might be an emotional and mental tension, which might come out in social phobias or shyness, or, there's not all, the body doesn't always express it in such a clear way, but emotionally we're being limited as a result of it. And that's why I wanted to bring the second book to not be just about focal dystonia, but about this whole aspect of where we are being limited from really achieving our full potential. So I had sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just blabbering.
I just wanted to answer some questions, and I hope I get to them all. It's a little bit complicated for me to see the questions in the chat. Somebody's asked me if I've made any connections to the therapy concept of internal family systems, because it seems to be that there's a strong link. I think internal family systems is an amazing therapy, but I think at the end of the day, these are all just frames, and we need to become very clear that the frame of the therapy that we're in cannot come before the person. So what you will find as you work through these exercises, you will be naturally connecting with so many different internal parts of you. I mean, I've had a really I'm going to be really open and share with you. I had a really emotional day today, because I, as a child, was really beaten up on. And I was told that I was useless and I was worthless and I was stupid. And because of my race, I was inferior to other people, that I had nothing valuable at all to offer to this world. And yet I have felt this book has been inside of me since I was probably, I don't know, 5 years old. I think that was the first time I went on stage and was appallingly humiliated by a judge. And through all of that, and through all the being beaten up on by my school, by my family, this little girl inside of me said, you have something to say, and I know what it is. And she kept saying, I'm going to keep going. I will not listen to them, and I will not give up on myself. Misty, who is here, is one of my wonderful colleagues who supports me so much. She calls it her fierce little girl with her big cowboy boots on, right? And that little girl inside me was much smaller and much quieter, much shyer, but she kept going, I need to keep going. And today, I feel that she has given her gift, and she has expressed everything that she knew was inside to express. And so today has been a really big day and a really emotional day, because I've been so connected with her, with this part of me. She's been with me all day, and I have just been celebrating her and going, thank you so much for never giving up on yourself and for keeping on going to me. We're going to keep going. Every time other parts of me wanted to give up, she kept going, no, we're not going to. We're going to keep going. So yes, internal family systems is wonderful, and it needs to be done from this very personal place of only really know yourself and really know all the parts that you are holding inside. And what I wanted to give you was a really warm, caring process by which you can really get to know all of those different parts and make them all right and make them all welcome here.
And don't be in a hurry. So this girl was really patient too. I told you at the dinner table, you can't make old cheese in a day. It takes 5 years at least. So you did it because this girl was patient,
Yeah.
not just resilient, but and loving. So
Yeah. Thank you, Sergio. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Slow down.
Beautiful.
I think slowing down and being patient is what you just said. It proves it. This racing is no good. I mean,
I heard a great quote yesterday, and I wrote it down. You don't eat the fruit the same day you plant the seed.
I mean, I'm Italian. I'm going to apply that to wine, right? I mean, our wines are made to age. Can't make aged wine, and you can make it taste like it, but you know, the truth is going to come out at some point when you taste an old wine and you've been drinking good tasting. It seems like it's old wine, but very young wine. But when you then, you know, it's going to come crashing on you at some point. So the patience is what got this little girl through things, and it grew to where he is, and it got, you know, and everyone has their story.
Yeah. I'm just going to come over to it to just keep moving through some questions, and then we'll close. So I have a question about somebody who's done about 30 brain spotting sessions, and how would this book, you know, add to that? I still brain spot. I still do brain spotting sessions because I think this is an eternal journey. I think in the same way that music is an eternal journey. We're never going to go, okay, now I'm done as a musician, right? We're constantly learning. We're constantly growing. It's like we never get to the horizon. You know, the horizon is always there ahead of us. And I think brain spotting is the same. I also think that when I think of when I think of how many experiences that I was holding inside of myself, you know, 30 hours, am I really going to release all of that? In 30 hours, I think probably not. It's going to take longer, and it's going to take longer in time as well. And then also, it depends who you're brain spotting with. right? Maybe I don't know whether we'll be able to at the end, but whether I could present you to my team, but you can see my team on my websites. So I've trained a number of brain spotting therapists to really understand the depth of this work. You know, how do you get to, you know, part of my story is that I was adopted. My mother knew she was going to put me up for adoption. So for the 9 months that I was in her womb, my brain was, and my system was already knowing that there was going to be a separation, right?
Mhm.
How do I get to that in my brain? I'm probably not going to get to that straight away. That takes time, but it also takes a tremendous amount of self-exploration in a very particular way. So one thing is the brain spotting. The other thing is the frame within which we do the brain spotting. And that was partly what I wanted to give in this book, so that we really can get into such a deep sense of exploration to us that we have so much more material to take into our brain spotting sessions. And myself and the therapists that I've trained really know how to do that. And they understand this frame that maybe another brain spotting practitioner who is going to be a brilliant therapist, but might not understand this frame and this particular way of working.
And
I'm going to hand
Ruth,
it to you guys. Yeah.
if I can just say something real fast about that, and forgive me, my dog's going nuts in the background, but this is really important. There really is I look at brain spotting two ways. When we first started, it was most about activation brain spotting, which is sitting in the nitty gritty of the pain that's somewhere deep inside. And then as we started to get through some of that, and I started to feel serene, which is like my word of the day now that Sergio said that, then it became about expansive brain spotting. And it became about tapping deeper and deeper into your essence. And that's something I do every day before I write now. And then we've even taken it a step further, you and me, Ruth. You know, we've been working together a long time. We now brain spot my characters. So you will almost put me into a trance of being one of my characters, and we'll brain spot that character, and I will completely become him or her. And that's a whole other world that is, you know, possible with brain spotting. So what I know is this is not some fix-it-all thing where you buy a book and 3 weeks later you're at the top of the best charts, or you're playing for the Chicago Symphony or something. This is something that I will do for the rest of my life till the day I die, and it's a lifestyle. It's not some fix-it thing.
Right, and it just gets better and better, doesn't it?
Yes,
Well,
it does.
you don't write to be a bestseller. I mean, I think that, I don't practice so that I can get into the Chicago Symphony. I mean, I'd like to. Well, actually, I wouldn't. But I mean, you know, but it could be that. I mean, there's so many branches and all.
Absolutely, good point.
But let's use the Chicago Symphony for me, or the bestseller for you, or whatever it is, the top of the top in our minds. Again, it's in our minds. But that goal, which is good to have. I mean, if it's your dream, we should dream, right? We're humans. We should dream. And if that's what you want to do, but that goal isn't going to be a result of you doing the work. It's not going to be you have to do the work for another reason. You have to do the work because that way you can express yourself. You can stay serene because you are expressing yourself. And if you're free to do that, if you're free to perform, I mean, if you're doing it because you need to do it for yourself, because you can't live without doing it, then the Chicago Symphony is going to come, because obviously you're going to produce quality because you're doing your best work, because you're good, because you're feeling good, because you're well. I'm sorry, I'm speaking because you're well. And then if that success doesn't come, so be it. You know, but you're still satisfied with yourself because you're expressing yourself, you're expressing who you are. So I think what Boo just said is fundamental for all of us.
And I think with just to add to that, I think part of brain spotting, and as we start to shed our ego, my goal, I'm not there every day, but when I sit down to write, I want to express myself. I also want to connect with everyone in the world and affect their hearts. And that's what I want my books to do. And so all of a sudden, it's not about me at all. I just want someone to read and maybe have a little bit better of a day because of it, you know?
Well,
and
When
That
you
is
affect
it.
somebody's heart, your heart is affected.
Yeah, that's
right,
true.
right.
But that's not, we shouldn't label that as success. We should label that as a flow of being human and of letting feelings, opinions, emotions, hardships, not hardships flow amongst each other and have like even a session like tonight. I mean, that's just, that's what it's about.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Boo, you asked me yesterday, and thank you to Misty who reminded me. You asked me yesterday, is the book enough? Could somebody just take this book, work through the exercises, and that be enough? Or do the people really need to also be seeing a brain spotting therapist and having some therapy in addition to it? The answer to the question is, for some people, the book is enough. Right, there are some people that I know, people with the Focal Dystonia book that have picked up, they've worked through and they've resolved their Focal Dystonia, have come into a whole different place within themselves. And in fact, it's a shame I can't get microphones on, but it's just too complicated. Brian, who is with us here today, and I think Richard as well, have done the most astonishing processes with themselves and brought themselves to like such a deep and beautiful connection. And they've worked with just the book themselves and the book. So yes, for many people, I mentioned Brian and Richard because I just think you are amazing people. So and a real inspiration. So for some people, they can do that. However, there are other people where we do need to be accompanied, right? We're talking so often about having been on our own as children and not having somebody accompany us and attune to us. And so having that is sometimes a very important integral part of this process. You might choose that accompaniment to be with a therapist because you notice that you have a really high level of activation and a lot comes through that you're unable to hold and it puts you outside your window of tolerance. That would be when you would want to look for a therapist. But I have other people that, and it was one thing I talk at the beginning of the book, is find somebody or a group of people where you can work with this together and you can share and you can have coffee together or whatever it is that would be your place of meeting and share and go through the process together. That's another way of having that accompaniment. And then any groups where what you're learning out of this you could bring into, you might be in a men's group or a self-help group or, a yoga class, which is a really open kind of sharing type space. That's also a really great space to bring your learning to, and that will support you in the process.
Human contact.
Human contact. Exactly. And I'm just going to answer one more question, if that's okay, that Brian's asked about the neurodivergence. It says, can this hypersensitivity be undone through brain spotting, or do we think it's something we have to live with for life? I think the negative aspect of it, meaning the pain that it causes, we can release through the brain spotting. And then what happens is we find that this is a gift. I mean, I can do what I do with people because of my hypersensitivity, but I don't have it doesn't knock my nervous system out of balance any longer, which is the difficult part of it. So I believe that my hypersensitivity has become a great gift that I choose to share with people to bring more joy and happiness into the world.
Ruth, I wrote something down because somebody said something about sensitivity, and what I wrote down was people used to tell me all the time I was too sensitive, and I used to think in my mind, I don't know if I'm too sensitive. I kind of think you're too insensitive.
One is never sensitive enough. It can't be too much.
Yeah.
It's like toilet paper. You never have enough.
Okay. Victor, lovely for you to come back and join us again.
Thank you. Yeah, we just finished a camp, a 5-day camp called the Spirit of Music. And I started this camp just to have the freedom to talk about what we wanted to talk about without negative judgment or fear. And of course, it all surrounding music, but healing with music, the struggles, the baggage we carry just to play a song. And so it just ended, and it's so even for us instructors, it's so helpful. We feel like students because we get so much from it. So thanks for letting me come back in.
Thank you. I just, is there anything else that you would like to add, Victor, that you've been reflecting on in this little while? And I'm just going to just check through and see if there are any other questions that we need to attend to.
Sure. I think one of the biggest problems that many of us have is we just think we're not enough for some reason. We think that who we are is not enough for whatever situation we're in, whatever relationship we're in, or whatever. But you are enough, and you are fine exactly as you are, exactly where you are. And I mentioned earlier about a fingerprint that we have that no one else in the history of humans, past, present, or future have or will have. So, and probably everyone out there listening and watching are old enough to know how babies are born.
Yeah.
But the thought is that when we were born, that was a moment in time that can't be measured. We don't know where we came from, how we got there, when our spirit arrived, how our heart started beating. Doctors only know what happens after we're born. But it takes a whole lot of chance or something for us to be there. But to get to my point is that when you were born, something chose you. Out of all the other choices, you were chosen. And the little science that I know, I think there was maybe a race of some sort to get to the egg, but you won.
Right.
Which means you've already won the biggest lottery, competition, race, anything you could enter into, you've already won just by being born. And even better than that, you've been given proof that you won by a stamp that no one else has. It's your victory. And the cool thing about it that it took me a long time to realize is that my victory can't be taken away. In other words, it doesn't matter what I do or don't do for the rest of my life. I can veg out on the couch for 100 years. You can't take my victory away. So I'm walking, living, breathing victory. I mean, literally, we all are. Not dependent upon what I do next or what I did. I've already done the most magnificent thing I could do on this planet. I was born.
Yeah.
The rest is just choice. See, I don't know that insects or some animals, I don't know that all animals or whatever have the same gift of choice that we have as humans. So now that I know that I have this victory, now I'm even given the gift of choice. I get to choose what to do with it. Like, I don't know that a beaver cannot chew down a tree and build a dam. I don't know if a squirrel cannot build a nest. But I do know that a bird, whether it can sing or not, I do know that they're not singing to win a Grammy. They're not doing it, you know. I think they know that they're worthy. They know who they are, and they express it.
Sad birds sing too.
Sad birds sing too. I love that. I love
One
that.
of my favorites.
Gotta write that one down. Write that one down.
And
Yes.
I think this is a thought, and I'd love to hear your views on this. I think that maybe our purpose as human beings is to be ourselves, to rejoice being ourselves, but to connect from there to other people being themselves and rejoice other people being themselves. Maybe that's all we're here to do. I mean, maybe that is our purpose. In the same way the beaver will build a dam, maybe, you know, that's what we're here to do, is to be authentic and to celebrate other people's authenticness and connect from there together. And we can connect many ways. We connect like this through conversation. We connect through our music. That's why we're playing music, not to behave and look at me, look how clever and amazing I am.
Right.
It's so that we can connect human spirit to human spirit.
Maybe. And maybe the purpose of life is to not know anything.
Yes.
You know, in the same way you can take a great actor, but he can play a character of someone who doesn't know anything, or a villain. And this actor, the better they play the villain in the movie, they get awarded for it, even though that's not who they really are. So it could be that the purpose of life is that we get to forget who we really are and live this drama life. Because I believe that who we are on earth does not affect, at least negatively, who we really are from the source. Because a lot of religions say that God, or whatever you want to call it, made everything. Made everything out of what? If all there was the source. That means everything was made out of the source, in my view. So that means there can't be anything except the source. And a great story that I heard, and I'll try to stop talking after this. I was Neil Donald Walsh, who an author who told this story of the little soul in the sun. And again, I apologize for sounding religious, because I'm not really religious, but I love the stories. And I don't worry about whether they're true or not. That's wasted time. I wasn't there. What's true or not is whether I can use it, whether I resonate with it. Or not. Even when I don't resonate with it, someone else might. So what I don't resonate, I can give away to someone else who might. I learn it all, whether I like it or not. But in the story, these souls were talking to God and telling God what they wanted to be when they were born. Somebody just wrote a good quote, Holly.
Yeah,
something.
it's
All
great.
the birds sing. I can't see the whole quote, but it sounds like it's going to be.
I will read it in a moment. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Holly. These souls were asking what they were asking God, or telling God what they wanted to be when they came to earth. I want to be light. Okay, you're light. I want to be happiness. Okay, you're happiness, or whatever. This one soul comes over and says, I want to be forgiveness. God is stumped. He says everything on earth is perfect. There's nothing to forgive. But this soul says, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be, forgiveness. And another soul comes over and says, I have an idea. I'll be born with you, and I will be your villain. And I will do horrible things to you, and then you can forgive me. So the first soul says, really? You would do that for me? And the other soul says, yes, I love you that much. But the soul says, but for me to do that, for me to do horrible things to you, I will have to forget who I really am. So I'm going to need you to remember. Because if you forget also, and I forget, then God will have to send someone else down to remind us both. And Ruth, that has freed me up a whole lot. Because now I don't curse my enemies. I don't curse my audience for seeing every mistake. I bless them for it. Because I can't be the good person without the bad person to compare to. I can't grow without the adversity. I can't even jump up without pushing down. So everything is necessary in the earth, on the earth. Everything is necessary, whether we like it or not. Even my shortcomings. And with my dystonia that I mentioned earlier, I know that there's a beautiful rainbow at the end. And this beautiful rainbow will not just be for me. Because I've been vocal about my dystonia, I've had so many people, either publicly or in secret, to tell me that they're struggling with the same thing. I've learned about a lot of Band-Aids that work for dystonia. It'll make it go away for a few months. And I'm interested in hearing that, because even though the Band-Aid is not for me, it might be for someone that I know. So I learn about it. But I know that the cure is there. Ruth, I believe you have it, whether it's the whole thing, you have such a huge part of it. And it's helped me. I'm just lazy that I don't do what you tell me to do every day. But I know whenever, as soon as my psyche or whatever it is says, okay, now it's time, your exercises is going to be a big part of mine and a lot of other people's recovery. And I know that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know now I've got other people in these windows that I can research, and I know that they're going to have a piece of my puzzle too. So thank you all.
Thanks, Vic.
This lovely quote was, if all the birds sang the same song, the woods would be very boring.
I have to say something very quickly. I've been dying to say this because
Please do.
Ruth said something to me a while ago that felt like I was hit with an atomic bomb. She said, Craig, how does this sound to you? I was looking for a cure for my troubles. It turned out my trouble was my cure. And I now thank Focal Dystonia with all my heart for coming and visiting me. It is the great teacher. It's the only reason I'm even able to wake up in the morning and go, what's next today? Because I never felt like that before I started to try to heal myself from focal dystonia. So thank you, Focal Dystonia, and thank you, Ruth, for that quote. I was looking for a trouble for my cure, and it turns out my cure was my trouble was my cure. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I truly believe that. I mean, I'm not religious at all either. I'm just a big romantic, and I don't really know what I believe. But looking back, I mean, we're all the age we are, but everything that's happened in my life has sort of been a result of something either really bad or a little bit bad or something that at the moment really upset me. So, you know, there's a lot to think about when, I mean, you know, with you guys with focal dystonia, it's a thing. I mean, I don't know, you want to label it as a disease. It's a condition, right, Ruth? But you know, if you apply it, I just love what Craig just said. You know, I mean, if you apply that, I mean, you know, we hear it all the time. We see it on quotes on bumper stickers. You know, there's a reason for anything. Blah blah blah. You overlook it, but it's so profound. Actually, it's such a profound thing if you really stop and think. Because, like Victor was saying, I mean, the really great things that make you feel good or fulfilled or you know, whatever it is, they can't be if the bad guy isn't next to it, or if you know, if you've never, I mean, it's pure utopia. I mean, right? I mean, we hear it all the time. Happiness doesn't exist if unhappiness exists. You know, the yin and the yang. I mean, you can take it any way you want, but it is true. It is true, and I think that every one of us could look back at either their entire lives, their careers, their relationships, whatever, the whole lot, and look at how the path went. Ooh, there was a real bump there, but then look what happened. I mean, if you really stop and think, and oh my God, and then there was a real dip there, but then look where you ended up again. And again, we're just associating that down is bad and up is good. That's wrong too. You know, I mean, you could be in real trouble. I mean, the cat that climbs the tree is in trouble. They're not happy up there. You know, they want to get back down. They want to get back down, and they freak out because they got up there and they don't know how to get down, right? I mean, there's something to be said about, you know, even the label, you know, white is good, black is bad, right? But up is good and down is bad. Says who? Paradise for the religious people is up and hell is down. What's up with that? You know, I mean, it's all, so there's always this thing in the mind, I think, and, you know, I'm not the expert, but it's this comparison that is constantly going. And in a way it's good, but the fine line of where it turns bad and poisons us is it's a real fine line, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I heard when you said comparison? Comparison is the thief of joy. And I completely believe that.
Yes.
You know,
I no longer compare myself to anyone. I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's all I did.
well, because what people say about you is none of your business. Unless, you know, I mean, this is Leonard Bernstein's words. It's none of your business unless you listen to them. And of course, there's things that you do want to hear, but it's none of their business unless you let it be your business, you know? I mean, it's none of your business unless you let it. And you have a choice. Victor was talking about the choice. You have a choice of what to let in and what to let flow. You let in only what really enhances you and what grows you and what keeps your flow going. If it stops the flow, let it flow and out.
And what I think what I wanted, one of the things I wanted to do with both books, but particularly with this book, was to enable you to know how to do that, because that's easily said. But if my body and my deep brain is holding an alert that when somebody says this, then that is such a deep personal attack on my personal integrity because of things that happened probably when we were very young. Our adult brain isn't able to get involved with that. So what happens is it gets stuck, and then it repeats and it repeats. And every time a certain set of circumstances happen, that repeats again. And so it's not able just to flow through. And so a lot of the exercise I'm giving the book is so that we can recognize the things that have got stuck. And we have a tool called Brainspotting so that the brain can rewire and those things can flow in, flow out. Similarly, that Craig talked about with his experience when somebody said to you, the weak link in the band. Well, before we started doing Brainspotting, Craig, that would have really knocked you off balance, and that would have stayed with you for a long time before you could get back to balance, right? And now, because of what we've done, that kind of hook in your brain isn't there any longer. So this guy said that, and it just flowed right on past, because that was to do with him, not to do with you, right?
It's that serenity I'm talking about. That's where you come in, Ruth. You know, I mean, removing that hook is what not everyone is capable about. Actually, very few are without some kind of help.
Yes.
Some might get lucky. I mean, some might have, I don't know, the will, but that's where you come in. I mean, that's where this book and this way of, I mean, Brainspotting as a thing.
Yeah.
Because if you are serene, he would never think for 2 seconds that he's the weak link in the bank. He would never have thought it. He never will. Right. But obviously we're human and we do.
Yeah.
And that's where your work is so important.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do, because somebody did ask what's the difference between the two books, what I wanted to give in this book, in the first book, we have this, we go into this being really able to connect deeply into self and then be able to observe. It's kind of the fourth stage in the previous book for those who have read it. And then we're able to observe, so where am I not, where am I adapting myself in life? And I basically got that part and put it under a magnifying glass and have gone into a real lot of detail of how we can come into so much self-awareness of the ways that we knot ourselves up. And then exercises of how to let go of that, down to real subtle details of probably things that you wouldn't even notice because they've become really normalized in yourself. And then how to become aware of all of that, how to release that and let that go, and to come so much more into this place of essence that Victor's talking about, that you're talking about, Sergio, that Craig talks about, where we can just be in this place of serenity, where I can be present with things that are upsetting and things that are beautiful, and not judge and not get in tension and in conflict about it. I can just be with it, and I'm still at peace in myself. Boo, is there anything else that you'd like to just add in here?
Well, I mentioned earlier, and I didn't get to expand on it the way I wanted to, but that idea that we're all spiritual beings taking on a human form for a moment, and Victor touched on it just a minute ago. And so into 3 years of Brainspotting every day, Victor, I have done the work, and probably because I'm so focused on beating it almost to a point, and that's probably why I got Focal Dystonia in the first place, is I'm getting so wanting to fix it. But what I have found, I am getting taste. Victor, I think you missed this part. Just a few weeks ago, I've had Focal Dystonia since 2001. Just a few weeks ago, I've started to climb out of it over the past year, but a few weeks ago, I sat down not as a performer, not as someone who wanted to show what I could do, but just as a student and a curious being, just relearning the banjo and having fun. And what I found in the course of this, our brain spotting, Ruth, is that we are not our thinking mind. That's just a small part of who we are. We have this glowing presence about us that we call the essence in this term. And when our essence plays, I almost look at it like that movie Pandora, where these guys step into these larger robotic things. We are a spiritual self climbing into these bags of flesh. And at some point, I started letting the inner child and this bag of flesh start steering. But what I'm starting to see is I start to play like I never have before, like in a very easy state where there's no trying, is I sense that it's just this essence playing and I'm back in control. And the me that's not the thinking brain, but the me that is absolutely just a, infinite molecules connected to the other molecules that spread out into the universe. And it's almost, I'm just seeing it. And like I was saying, I can turn it on and turn it off more and more. I can start to just shed the thinking that makes me, oh God, I'm not as good as this person, or I better write really well today because I have a deadline in 2 weeks. And God, what did I say to my son? I should have done something better. I let all that go. And what ends up here is this being of love. And when we connect with others and we all connect with these beings of love, that's the beauty of the world. And that's where we find our perfect flow. And like I said, I'm not there every time, but I know when it's there, and I've been all over it lately, getting beautiful tastes of it. Thank you to Ruth for that.
Thank you, Boo. So I'm actually going to reach for the first book, because I would like just to read a poem from here, just as a way of closing for today. So this is a poem by Rumi, the Sufi poet. And he says, it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to thank, I'm going to just say the names as I have them on the screen here. Craig Korth, thank you very much for being here, sharing your experience and your wisdom. Sergio Pallotelli, thank you so much as well for being here and sharing all your amazing experience and your wonderful heart. Boo Walker, thank you as well for all the support that you give me. This book would not be here without you. You've given me so much encouragement. You've given me so much practical support as well and advice, and enormously grateful to you. And I am so looking forward to getting to the end of An Echo in Time. Wonderful page turner. And Victor, thank you so much for finding the time. I know how busy your schedule has been this week, how crazy it had with your camp the last day today. And so I'm so grateful that you have found the time to spend with us and share your amazing inspiration and worldview. Thank you.
I'm honored. And thank you for your time too.
And I'd like to thank everyone who's been here with us today, who's shared, who have asked questions, who has just shared this experience with us. It's been beautiful.
Thank you,
all.
you, Ruth.
Thank you.
For the humans that you all are. Very inspiring and heart-filling. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
What a pleasure.
Thank you.